Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Madras Management Association, a very warm welcome to this prestigious MMA annual convention on the theme India 2018, Learning to Grow. Ladies and gentlemen, we commence the inaugural session, and we are also very proud to share with you that this convention is being webcast live, especially for the benefit of our members who are in our chapters. We've got 8 locations outside the city of Chennai, which are the MMA chapters. A very warm welcome to our viewers who are watching this online. It is my privilege to invite the dignitaries of the inaugural session to take their place on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them with a round of applause. I now invite Mr. C.V. Subbarao, Honorary Treasurer, Madras Management Association and Deputy Managing Director, Sanmar Shipping Limited, Mr. L. Ramkumar, the Convention Chairman, Senior Vice President, Madras Management Association and Managing Director, Tube Investments of India Limited, Ms. Kavita D. Chitturi, President, Madras Management Association, Joint Managing Director, the KCP Limited. Our guest of honor for today, Mr. Jaydee Brar, Senior Partner, McKinsey & Company. Our chief guest for today, Dr. Arvind Subramanian, Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, escorted by Group Captain R. Vijay Kumar, Executive Director, Madras Management Association. MMA is very active in social media. MMA Chennai is the Facebook page. Please log into the page and like the postings. We have our social media consultant who posts the live photographs. We are also active in Twitter, MMA_4U, number 4U is the Twitter link. So log into the Facebook and Twitter page. Ladies and gentlemen, we commence the inaugural session with the invocation song on Lord Shiva. To render the song, may I now invite Ms. Padmaja. Request you to kindly rise for the invocation song. Thank you.
Mrityunjayaya Nama Om, Trayambakaya Nama Om, Lingeshwaraya Nama Om, Saishwaraya Nama Om, Satya Saishwaraya Nama Om, Mrityunjayaya Nama Om, Trayambakaya Nama Om, Lingeshwaraya Nama Om, Saishwaraya Nama Om, Satya Saishwaraya Nama Om, Om Namah Shivaya 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 Nama Om.
Thank you, madam. May I request our chief guest, Dr. Arvind Subramanian, to kindly present a floral bouquet to Ms. Padmaja. Thank you, sir. Ms. Kavita D. Chitturi is the President, Madras Management Association and Joint Managing Director, the KCP Limited. I now request Ms. Kavita Chitturi to deliver the welcome and introduction.
Namaskar. Shri Arvind Subramanian, Chief Economic Advisor to Government of India, Shri Jaydee Brar, Senior Partner, McKinsey & Company, Shri L. Ramkumar, Convention Chair, Senior VP MMA and Managing Director, Tube Investments of India Limited, Shri C.V. Subbarao, Honorary Treasurer MMA and Deputy Managing Director, Sanmar Shipping Limited, Dr. P.S. Nair, Head of the Structures and Mechanisms Subsystem, Team Indus and former Satellite Director, ISRO, Shri Subaya Vishwanathan, Chief Digital Innovation and Transformation Officer, Apollo Hospitals Enterprises Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning and a warm welcome to all of you. This event, the theme-based annual convention, is one that all of us at the MMA and the corporate world look forward to in the calendar of management events in the country. This has gained a reputation for high quality and excellence over decades, attracting large numbers of delegates from all over the country. MMA organized its first management convention on the 15th of July, 1969. A Business Leadership Award was instituted by Shri A. Sivasailam, the then chairperson of the Amalgamations Group. The first recipient of the MMA Business Leadership Award was none other than Shri Jaydee Tata. Shri Tata, in the course of his address, talked about accelerating industrial growth, export, employment generation, and many other areas. Almost 5 decades ago, he had talked about areas critical to India's development, which are relevant even in today's context, while most of his aspirations and dreams have come true. Industrial growth has happened, and we have built a sound economy on a strong manufacturing base. This industrial growth has led to a significant employment generation, as has been talked about and then and even today. Today, we are proud of the fact that we have come a long way with our exports, also generating huge revenues, and we have become truly multinational. With the technological advancements and consequent improvements in various fields, including satellites and telecommunications, avenues have been opening up, and not only have we retained our presence in traditional sectors, we have also made inroads into non-traditional sectors and have been growing, and at the same time, managements of organizations have, for their part, been playing significant roles in the growth of imparting relevant training. Today, we stand on par with the best in the world. Keeping on these lines, MMA has continuously endeavored to promote and propagate the management movement in our country and has been closely associated with like-minded professional organizations in bringing out high-quality management programs in Tamil Nadu and Puducherry. This year's convention has been conceptualized and designed with the support of our knowledge partners, McKinsey & Company, and is a timely attempt to focus on these issues. And the chairman of the convention, Mr. Ramkumar, will brief you more about it. It's heartening to see the large delegate of management professionals who are here from the corporates across the country, and my warm welcome to each one of you. This convention is being watched live all over the world, and a very warm welcome to all the viewers as well. Once again, I welcome all the delegates, distinguished speakers, former presidents of MMA, invitees, media, and my colleagues in the MMA Management Committee. I'm also pleased to inform you that Shri Honorable Vice President of India, Shri M. Venkaiah Naidu, inaugurated the state-of-the-art MMA Management Center last month. We will fully be operational by the end of this month. This new center has training rooms and a hall that can seat over 300 people. We look forward to seeing you there. Hope you all have a very enjoyable and enriching day. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. L. Ramkumar is the convention chairman, the Senior Vice President, Madras Management Association, and Managing Director of Tube Investments of India Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, I now call upon Mr. Ramkumar to present the overview of the convention.
Dr. Arvind Subramaniam, Mr. Brar, and my co-colleagues in the Managing Committee of MMA, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed my proud privilege and honor to present to you the overview of a convention as a convention chairman. Designing a convention for a heterogeneous group like MMA has always been a challenge. It has to appeal to the widest possible audience. I must thank McKinsey here, who have been our knowledge partners, for having been associated with us in developing this concept and presenting what we are presenting today. Sir, I am conscious of the presence of a renowned economist like Dr. Arvind Subramaniam on the stage. Still, I am taking the liberty and mustering courage to quote some numbers in relation to the GDP to set the context for the theme of the convention, because it's all about growth. So I just quote from IMF. IMF in January 2018 said India's GDP forecast will be at 7.4%. It also estimated that the Indian economy would grow by 7.8 in 2019 which will make India one of the world's fastest growing economy. IMF is also bullish about the global economy and has scaled up the forecast of the world output to 3.9% in 2018 and 19. Owing to the various structural reforms, I'm sure Doctor will delve in more detail, like GST, insolvency, etc. The trajectory seems quite positive. Backing the reforms initiated by the government in the last 3 years, the international agency Moody also raised our rating from stable to positive. Further, the focus given on education, health, rural sector in the recent budget is expected to generate robust consumption demand. Yes, the mood is positive. There are lots of opportunities for growth. There are challenges as well. Job growth remains a challenge. Millions of youth and enterprises need to be prepared for the complex, the rapidly changing environment. The demographic dividend will work in India's favor with 64% of the population in working age by 2021. Then there is rapid urbanization happening with its own challenges and opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that we are in interesting times. The country has come thus far, and there are few things that we have to learn and few to unlearn to go farther. Digital technology and innovation has taken over the world to impact business and society in ways we wouldn't have imagined a while back. Scale can be achieved only through low-cost, intelligent solutions to problems. Sustainable and inclusive growth is the key. There is a humongous work to be done in reskilling and upskilling to match the rapid changes. The young are expected to continuously learn and grow into their own high potential. Hence, learning, in my view, would be an imperative for growth. It's not going to be more of the same. The learning would have to be broadly under 3 categories. We have to apply technology, we have to innovate for scale, we have to reskill the human resources. It is in this context that MMA Annual Convention 2018 seeks to explore all of these trends and ponder over a few burning questions on India's growth and how should organizations adapt internally and externally to face the challenges. How can they become agile in response? What will it take to learn the dynamics of India's growth story? So the convention is organized over 3 major sessions. First one is technology for development. How does actually technology change and impact our lives? Financial services, commerce, and logistics are a few areas undergoing transformational shifts owing to technology and big data analytics. Globally, robotics and automation are going to drive competitiveness. To put it in perspective, China has become the world's biggest buyer and user of industrial robots in 2017. Artificial intelligence, as we keep hearing in various forums, and its impact has been spoken at large in various forums like World Economic Forum recently at Davos. Innovating for scale. Scale is going to be very important for growth, and what are the new ideas that can challenge the status quo? In this session, we explore how organizations and individuals are thinking differently to address various economic and social problems. Startups with innovative solutions and business models are paving the way for India's growth. And finally, skills to learn and grow. How can people lead the way? India produces the highest number of engineers in the world, and yet various human resource surveys has repeatedly pointed out emphatically as a serious issue, resulting in considerable demand and supply gaps of talent. Attracting, retaining, and nurturing the best talent has become a major challenge in a volatile environment. With changing times, how shall the academia and industry come together to address these skill gaps? This session explores on how individuals can hone their full human potential in a more conscious way. This year's convention hence has 3 business sessions on the above 3 topics, sandwiched between the inaugural and valedictory sessions, the galaxy of distinguished speakers who will be addressing the delegates during the convention. In the inaugural session, we are proud to have Dr. Arvind Subramaniam, Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, as the chief guest and to deliver the inaugural address. Mr. Jaydee Brar, Senior Partner, McKinsey & Company, has kindly agreed to deliver the keynote address for the inaugural session. Thank you very much to both of you. The convention's special issue of Business Mandate, edited by Group Captain Vijay Kumar, Executive Director MMA, and his team will be released during the inaugural session. In the valedictory session, we are glad to say Taraka Rama Rao, Ministry for Industry and Commerce, Information Technology, Municipal Administration, Urban Development, Government of Telangana has kindly consented to deliver the valedictory address. Dr. A. Velumani, Creator and Managing Director, Thyrocare, will deliver the keynote address during the valedictory session. We have a galaxy of speakers from all over India addressing the delegates during the convention. The details of the distinguished chairman and speakers for various special sessions are indicated in the speaker's profile booklet given to you as part of the convention delegate kit. I trust all of you will immensely benefit from the deliberations of the MMA Annual Convention 2018. I wish you have a great, enriching experience and enjoy the convention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jaydee Brar is the senior partner with McKinsey & Company, wherein he leads McKinsey's marketing and sales practice in India and industrial marketing and sales practice across Asia Pacific. I now invite Mr. Jaydee Brar to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you. Good morning. It's indeed a privilege to be invited here with all of you to sort of give the keynote address. Let me first start off by talking a little bit about what I'm not going to cover. The topic is learning to grow. As I walked in and had conversations with many of you, I think there are a lot of questions on the macroeconomic outlook. I think we have far more wiser and insightful people on the panel who will talk about it. So I'm going to start with the assumption that the macroeconomic environment will be challenging, volatile, yet full of opportunities. Given that, I'm going to spend time on discussing, as individual companies, businesses, what can you do in this environment to thrive and grow? So let's first start with growth. I think it's a topic which is clearly on top of everybody's minds. In boardrooms, we are in the annual business planning cycle, big stretch targets are being taken, a lot of debate, negotiation is happening with what needs to be done. But I think what is very, very clear is that growth is absolutely the lifeblood of any organization or business. Empirically even, it's sort of well established that companies which deliver market-beating growth create the most value. I've been a consultant for 18 years, and force of habit is that I will use a presentation. Hopefully, it'll help to illustrate my points and not to sort of confuse. So I think just some data. It is the biggest determinant of value creation. Empirically, we found companies which are able to grow 1.5 to 3 times their industry create the most value. At the same time, the examples of companies which are able to deliver secular growth year on year is very, very limited. At the same time, very few companies will sort of tell you that they have a systematic program to really, really find the insights and grow. This was always true, but what is happening now is that growth is becoming even more challenging. I think we've seen, not only in India, but even globally, if you look at the last 2 decades, they have been more volatile than the last 100 years. So this volatility makes identification of opportunities, allocation of resources extremely challenging. At the same time, we are now all, in a way, sort of being bamboozled by the whole thinking on digital analytics. Everybody has programs in that area, but very few people know how it really translates into real business impact. However, if you have a consumer-facing business, digital is fundamentally changing how consumers make decisions and how they buy. So you do need to sort of get that piece of the puzzle right. And as always has been the case, there is aggressive source of competitions. Business models are getting upended every day. There are competitors who are able to play at a very fundamentally different cost position. So if you take all of that, achieving growth is actually important, but fairly difficult. So now we've sort of set the stage, right? Let's move on to, in this, what could be an approach you could take to actually find growth. Our learning through sort of extensive work with clients, our own research and insights has been you need to think about growth on sort of 3 dimensions. I think the first one is that more than trying to gain market share in the segments you're playing in, growth gets determined by the choice of where you play. Now I'll spend some time trying to illustrate that point. So this is a choice of where you play. Having made the choice, we've sort of learned that you do need to do all 3 things in terms of action. How you perform on your core businesses, how you make resource allocation and investment decisions, and very importantly, how do you create new product, services, and business models. So you can make the choice of where to play, but if you don't get these 3 pieces right, it will be very difficult to achieve growth. At the same time, if you get 1 or more of these pieces right, you have a very high chance of beating the odds. Finally, and this is very, very relevant in India, how do you activate your organization? People, talent is very underlooked dimension. I think a lot of lip service is usually paid to it. When you take aspects of growth, which is where the part of the organization which is working with customers, it's even more difficult to actually activate, mobilize, motivate that piece. They are your employees who are actually spending time not in the 4 walls of your factory or your office. They are ideally spending a bulk of their time with customers. So how do you create a culture? How do you motivate, mobilize, influence, and activate? People who get this right can really, really unleash all the dimensions which came before this. So let's do the following. We are going to spend some time just double-clicking in each of these elements, hopefully in a way to illustrate with examples which bring things alive. Now, this is data from India, and I'll just explain what this is. Over the last 15 years, sort of almost since 2000, we've been looking extensively at the large and sort of medium emerging companies, the ones which are growing very fast, growing significantly above the GDP, growing more than their peers. And we found that if you really disaggregate where that growth is coming from, 80% of that growth has came from the choices they've made to play in the right markets, be very purposeful to shift when they find that there are opportunities elsewhere. And this is not about going into new markets. This could be about product categories and variants. This could be about the types of customers they serve. This could be about the geographies they play in, right? So being purposeful and thoughtful about where you play empirically has driven 80% of growth of high-performing companies. Market share gain, which is where a lot of time is spent, has only explained 5%. Now this, given the last 15 years, has also been a time of many sectors and categories demonstrating breakout growth, is higher than what you'd find in the rest of the world. But even when we look at rest of the world, 60 to 70% of the growth still comes from the choices you make of where to play. I'm going to skip this. Therefore, one of the most important things becomes, do you understand what are the mega trends affecting your business? Now, this is an example from a manufacturing and industrial company, right? How is the investment in environmental solutions and those norms going to come in? Logistics infrastructure. It's a big area of unleashing opportunities. Even more with GST, even more changing competitive footprints. There is indigenization in many areas which is creating opportunity. So if you're a good Indian company, you can be a partner of choice for many people who see India as one of the opportunities. For an MNC, this is one of the opportunities to sort of make a partnership and invest. Energy, it's talked about a significant, completely getting upended in terms of sources and distribution. One of the areas which doesn't get as much attention, but is really creating distinctive value if you look at in consumer businesses and logistics and now even in things like construction, real estate, is productivity. India historically has had the least productivity in logistics, in many of the other areas. With technology, with some of the infrastructure coming up, this is an area which is getting a lot of innovations getting unleashed here. Companies which are able to create the models for creating high productivity gains through technology and other sources are already sort of creating new billion-dollar business opportunities. I think all of you have sort of heard of all these startups in logistics which are creating technology, driver relays, right? And this is something we believe will continue. So if you are in an industry which has low productivity, using technology to unleash that is a huge opportunity. And there are other things, like urbanization, etc. So the real question is that if where to play is a big determinant of how much growth can you deliver, the first question always is, do you fully understand and have you really fully gotten behind the trends which are affecting your business? And there are many, many of them, and there'll be more. Once you have that choice, that is not enough, right? That is necessary but not sufficient. Then you need to move on to knowing that you have to sort of pull all these three levers. You have to really perform well in terms of your core practices, make the right resource allocations, and of course, create new things. On performing, this is, again, empirical data from about 5,000 companies. If you look at the companies who score high on practices, these are not financial metrics, but these are underlying practices of how they go to market, how they go to customers, how they innovate, how they organize. And you will see secularly across the world and in India, companies which do well on practices do well on performance. And this is, on revenue growth, more than 80%, on profitability growth, more than 70%, and this is undisputable insight, empirically proven, right? So performing in your core business is always sort of very important. Of course, that I'm sure a lot of you also realize and drive your businesses towards. In the Indian context, what are the few things we've seen in terms of practices which have delivered real growth? So let me highlight 5 of them. The first is for growth, you cannot take one sliver of your value chain and say that I'm going to work on that. We've seen that when people work on what we call the full virtuous circle, that is when growth gets achieved. Let me illustrate this with an example from an automotive industry, right? There are times when people will say, oh, this year I'm going to work on making my dealers more efficient. Or this year I'm going to work on improving aftermarket. Undoubtedly, those are very important initiatives. But you don't unleash the full growth if you address everything in a comprehensive, integrative manner. For example, you can do all of that, but if you don't solve financing for your dealers and for your customers, you lose a big opportunity. If you do not address resale for your vehicles, you do not address the full opportunity. If you don't create the full service revenue, you don't fully capture the opportunity. So unlike in the area of cost efficiency, where you can get a lot of success by working on slivers and outperforming there, when you have to achieve growth, a big learning is that you have to work on the full circle of initiatives to get the full potential. The second, and in a few minutes, I will illustrate this with sort of real data, is that most companies find sometimes opportunities and pockets of growth, but they do not change the way they've allocated resources, right? 90% of the companies I see and work with, still organize themselves as a branch, a state, a zone, national, right? The number of people and the staffing they do at every part of this is identical to another zone, irrespective of what the challenges would be, where the opportunities would be. So making those decisions very, very important. The third statement at one level is almost inane. Sell the way the customers want and decide to buy, right? This is such an inane statement. But if you look at the decision journey of customers, how much of that decision journey as a company you are involved with? Usually, And very rarely we find that companies are involved with more than 20% of that decision journey. Usually, a lot of other factors, other places, other forums, other marketing models are sort of where the decisions happen. And I will spend some time on it again through an example, so let me sort of move on. Again, the digital analytics, all of that is a big source. I think the reality is it is still getting proven. Having said that, if you can get it right, and people are getting it right, it can give you a leapfrogging opportunity, which by doing a lot of groundwork, you will not be able to get. And finally, there's always the question of capabilities, right? So those are the 5 things we find in terms of performance. There are a number of practices, but people who are getting these 5 right usually are performing very well. So let's take now a few examples, right? I think the first one is what we sort of talked about, the consumer decision journey. The first insight we have is it is not a linear funnel, right? All of you look at a funnel, goes from left to right, awareness, consideration, purchase, trial, repurchase, loyalty, right? And it shows a linear. It is not. We have mapped over 2 lakh consumer decision journeys in various sectors, like individual journeys. And we find that it works like a circular loop. I will just highlight 2 points. The first is the trigger of starting to make the decision is very, very different and removed from when companies think they'll make the decision. The second is it does not move from creating a set of brands or products they'll buy in their consideration and then evaluating them. Usually, 50% of the products get added on during the evaluation stage. Often, decisions get actually done at the point of purchase. And finally, people who recommend your products, consumers, give 10 times return on your marketing investment than any other customer activation you can do, right? So the loyalty loop is very important. So now let's look at this, how it sort of worked for a construction, in construction. So the first step here is to actually always look at segmenting your customers by the consumer decision journey. Most companies would segment people by psychographics and demographics, which is very important. But how does your frontline ever use that information, right? It does not really get used. It is very important from marketing and product positioning point of view, but does not get used. But if you're able to segment your customers on how they make decisions, it is something which is very actionable. So in the case of construction, usually when you think about buying steel, TMT, and cement, is not when you are actually at the point of decision. It always happens when you are actually getting the foundation dug for your house. Historically, steel cement companies would never reach customers at that point in time. About 10 years ago, they started to figure that if I get there in time, that's what will sort of really unleash. Otherwise, I'm dependent on my dealers. The second thing they realized is that they had to really change their the model, right? It is your salespeople, if they start working at 10 o'clock, you can never access these customers. These decisions get people who supervise houses and make decisions at the crucial point, they're at their site at 7 a.m. in the morning. By 9, they're usually gone to work. So how do you create a model to actually get to them? Then, the first, are you spending your marketing money when customers are in a cement market? Or are you spending your money when they're actually talking to a borewell constructor or they are actually buying aggregates? Now, that could happen 4 weeks, 6 weeks, even 10 weeks before they actually make a cement or a steel decision. So if you are able to actually orient your marketing and customer outreach to that 6-10 weeks before, when he is in the or she is in the real decision-making cycle, the kind of impact you can get is very different. Otherwise, you are usually at the mercy of your channel partners. You are getting always fighting on price. So this is a usually very important part of reorienting your go-to-market. And companies who perform really well work on reaching the customer at the crucial points of that decision journey, not at the point of purchase only. So I'm going to skip some of this. Now let's look at another area where the customer decision journey has fundamentally changed due to digital. So no, if you've been buying a car, if you're buying a car 15 years ago, you made 4 to 5 dealership visits, all your work was very, very focused on looking at, what the offer was, physically trying to compare. In urban markets now, and this is not true for cars, it's also true for two-wheelers like scooters in urban markets, more than 50% of customers first actually go online. They usually go to aggregator sites. They make comparisons there. Many of these aggregator sites actually find a way of collecting those leads. Those leads can be bought, and you can have call centers of call. We found that if within 2 hours of a customer getting online and are making some kind of inquiry, if there is a call which goes from a dealership of an automobile company, that increases the likelihood of conversion by 50%. Then, customer still does not come to the dealership. Usually, a test drive is given. How do you manage the experience of that test drive? And only when the decision is made and he has to pick up the car, he shows up at the dealership. So you need digital, you need speed, you need call center or tele sales, you need